The Zarn Dominion had waited years for this moment. Their fleet, over 70 ships strong, hovered above the human outpost on planet Virelia. Smoke still rose from the blackened hills. Craters covered the ground. Human defenses were gone. Alien commanders stood on the rocky surface, their armor gleaming under the pale red sun, celebrating what they believed was a final victory. Commander Vrozek, tall and proud, looked around the battlefield and smiled. "So this is what humans had to offer?" he said, his voice sharp with pride. "Pathetic." The Zarn troops moved through the ruins, stepping over shattered turrets and crushed bunkers. No resistance remained. Human bodies were few. Vrozek found it strange. An entire base, but so few soldiers? Still, he pushed the thought away. "Perhaps they ran," he said, amused. "Even Earth's warriors know when to beg for mercy." His second-in-command, Sithra, scanned the wreckage. "No mainframe, no command center either," she reported. "Just scattered systems and emergency bunkers." That caught Vrozek's attention. He walked over to one of the shattered terminals and tapped a claw against the cracked screen. "They must have hidden it," he growled. "Find it. I want their full logs." Inside one of the broken chambers, a Zarn technician uncovered a sealed door. It hissed open after a quick override. The room was empty, except for a single chair and a console still active. On the screen, one message repeated, "This wasn't the main team." Sithra read it aloud, confusion in her voice. "What does that mean?" she asked. Vrozek stared at the words. His victory suddenly felt lighter, like something was missing. "Probably a human lie. Distraction tactics," he said. But his tone lacked confidence. Above them, Zarn warships floated in perfect formation. Pilots relaxed. Generals broadcasted news of victory across the Empire. Cheers erupted on homeworlds. News feeds flashed bold headlines. "Virelia falls. Earth's line broken." Statues were ordered. Songs began. It was the end of a long campaign, or so they thought. As the alien soldiers continued their sweep, one patrol team entered a hidden corridor deep underground. They expected more ruins. Instead, they found a human storage bay, untouched by the bombing. Inside were broken drones, old weapons, and a wall lined with data drives. One drive was still active. A curious soldier inserted it into a portable reader. The screen came to life. A voice spoke, human, male, calm. "If you're hearing this, congratulations. You won, or you think you did." The soldiers froze. Vrozek was called in. He watched the message play again. "You attacked Virelia. Smart move. But this wasn't a military base. It was a decoy. The unit stationed here wasn't trained for war. They were engineers, scientists, test crew, barely armed. So if you think this victory means anything..." The message paused. A face appeared on screen, a young human smirking. "You've just woken up a real problem." The screen cut to black. Silence filled the chamber. Vrozek turned to his officers. "Trace the signal. Where did this come from?" But the technician shook his head. "It's local but encrypted. And there's no data path. It looks like the file was uploaded manually, recently." "Recently?" Vrozek's voice turned sharp. "Within the last 20 minutes, outside, Zarn soldiers began reporting strange activity. Static filled their comms. Drones flickered and powered down. A transport ship lost contact. Then another. No signs of weapons, no signs of enemy movement. Just silence." Vrozek stood still for a long moment. He had fought in over 100 battles. He knew what fear felt like. And this was different. There were no enemies on radar, no ships in the sky, but something had changed. The air was too quiet. The silence felt heavy. Back on the command ship, high above Varelia, Admiral Krazor received the first reports. He laughed. "Ghost stories," he said. "Let the ground team enjoy their win." But then his own screen glitched. A red dot blinked once, then vanished. One of his patrol ships was no longer responding. He ordered a scan. The system replied, "No object found, no debris, no explosion. Ship status, unknown." One missing ship wasn't alarming, but then the second dot vanished. Then the third. Krazor stood slowly. "Recall all ships to defensive positions," he ordered. But it was already too late. Down on the ground, a single human helmet was found, in a crater. It was cracked, blood-stained, and clearly abandoned. But on the inside of the visor, someone had written in English, "Unit 9 was here." Vrozek stared at the helmet, the name repeating in his mind. He didn't know what Unit 9 was. He had never heard of them. But deep in his gut, he knew this was no mistake, no random act. The message in the helmet wasn't for humans, it was for them. The Zarn had celebrated too early, and now, something far worse than a battle was coming. The victory celebration didn't last long. Commander Vrozek returned to his temporary base near the crash site. The sky above Varelia was dark now, but not because of night. It was the clouds of dust and smoke still drifting from the battle. Inside the command tent, screens blinked with strange data. Systems that had worked fine just hours ago now flickered with static. "Why are half our systems down?" Vrozek asked, frowning at the wall of scrambled signals. A young alien technician stepped forward. "Sir, we're not sure. It started just after we found the human message. Our scanners are failing. Star maps are changing, objects disappearing, ships showing in the wrong place, then vanishing again." "That's not possible," Vrozek growled. "I thought the same," the technician replied. "Until this happened." He pointed to a video recording from one of the orbiting satellites. It showed a patrol ship, a Zarn cruiser flying slowly above Varelia. Then, in the middle of the video, the ship simply disappeared. No fire, no explosion, just gone. Vrozek leaned forward. "Replay that." They did. Again and again. Each time, it ended the same. Silence. Vanishing. Nothing left. Vrozek's hands curled into fists. "Where is Admiral Krazor?" "He's not answering. His ship isn't responding either." Sithra entered the room, holding a small data pad. Her eyes were wide. "Commander, we found another message, hidden in the human storage bay. It was buried under hundreds of fake files. Took us hours to uncover." Vrozek grabbed the pad and pressed play. This time, it was just a line of text. "You should have left Varelia alone." And then below it, "Unit 9 is not the Army. We come." Before the Army. Vrozek's jaw tightened. He still didn't understand who or what Unit 9 was. But one thing was clear. They weren't regular soldiers, and they weren't finished. Above the planet, more ships vanished. Patrol teams sent. To investigate never returned. The Zarn crews began to whisper in fear. Some said the humans had built invisible weapons. Others believed Unit 9 was an AI, unstoppable and everywhere, but none of them had proof, just silence. On the third night after the battle, something worse happened. A scout ship named Vraxel II returned from a nearby moon. Its landing was rough. Emergency lights were on, and the outer hull was covered in strange burns. When the ramp dropped, the inside of the ship was empty. All 6 crew members were gone. But there was one thing inside, a recording device, left on the command chair. Vrozek ordered it brought to him immediately. The recording was short. A shaky voice whispered, "We landed. We found tracks, human boots. But there were no buildings, no tech. Just messages carved into stone." The voice paused. Then came the last line. "They told us to stop. They told us this was our final warning." Vrozek stared at the screen, his mind racing. "Who carved it?" he asked aloud. "Humans can't breathe on that moon. It's toxic." "They wore suits," Sithra said softly. "Stealth suits. Old models. One of our scanners picked up a small energy spike there. Just for a second. Like someone wanted us to see it." Vrozek looked at her. "You think they let us find them?" Sithra nodded. "I think they're not hiding. I think they want us to follow." It made no sense. The humans had lost the battle. Why would they stay behind? Why leave messages instead of attacking? Unless this wasn't about the battle. Unless the humans had never planned to win. Back on the Zarn capital ship, what was left of it, panic was rising. Small fires burned in the control room. Doors were stuck open. Lights failed every few minutes. Even the artificial gravity was unstable. Soldiers whispered about ghosts, about hearing voices through the vents, about seeing figures just outside the windows floating in space. None of it was confirmed. But the fear was real. And then, a message came through. A single ping on the emergency frequency. No one used that line except for full-scale invasions or disasters. It was a voice, calm, steady, and terrifying. "This is Unit 9. You were given a chance. You chose arrogance. Now, we choose silence." The message ended. No reply could be sent. All attempts to trace the signal failed. Vrozek stared at the words echoing through the tent. "They're playing with us," he said slowly. "One unit, one message at a time." "They want us to be afraid," said Sithra. "They're succeeding," Vrozek admitted. He stood and looked at the planet outside. A dead outpost. A fake victory. He had once laughed at human courage. He had once called Earth soft. Now he wasn't sure what Earth truly was, but he was beginning to learn one terrible truth. This was not a war. It was a warning. The fourth ship vanished just before dawn. No explosion. No distress call. One moment it was patrolling the upper orbit of Virelia, and the next, its signal was gone. Commander Vrozek stood silently in the war room, eyes locked on the blank spot on the screen where the ship used to be. Around him, Zarn officers whispered in growing fear. "They're taking our ships one by one," Sithra said quietly beside him, without firing a single shot. Vrozek didn't answer. He was watching the feed from the other patrol routes. Small red warning symbols now blinked next to each one. Not because they were under attack, because contact had failed. Every 10 minutes, another system went dark. Another crew lost. "This doesn't make sense," Vrozek muttered. "There's no wreckage, no debris. How can a whole ship disappear?" Sithra checked her scanner again. "Not disappear. Be removed." Vrozek turned toward her slowly. "Removed?" "I think they're being taken," she said. "One by one, silently. Someone or something is coming for them." Outside, the skies over Virelia were now filled with unease. No human craft had appeared. No gunfire. Just the slow, constant failure of systems and the soundless loss of Zarn forces. Ground units were on edge. Soldiers refused to patrol alone. Some refused to go out at all. They had been trained for war, but no one had trained them for ghosts. Back in the command tent, another report came through. One of the Zarn scouting drones, sent deep into the ruins of the outpost, had picked up movement. It was small, barely a blip, but it was human-shaped. The feed cut out right after that. Vrozek ordered a unit to move in. Elite troopers, armed, with heat scanners and rail weapons, entered the ruin at once. Minutes passed, then 30, then an hour. They never responded. Only one thing came back. A small box dropped at the edge of the crater. A patrol drone found it during routine scan. It was human-made. On the front, painted in red, still not the army. Inside the box was a single boot, human military issue, and a message chip. When they played it, the voice returned. Calm. Cold. Did. You think we'd run? Did you think Varelia was abandoned? This wasn't a trap for us. It was a test for you. Vrozek clenched his fists. He didn't understand. None of this made sense. Why would humans leave a message like that? Why leave behind their dead, their wounded? Why stay silent while victory slipped through their enemies' fingers? Unless that was the plan all along. He walked out into the open air, looking up at the dark red sky. Around him, soldiers moved in tight groups, scanning every shadow. Paranoia had spread like poison. Sarn soldiers once feared nothing, but now they feared silence. Sithra joined him. "You need to see this," she said. They entered the tech tent. One of the engineers had recovered partial logs from the outpost's underground servers. The files were corrupted, almost erased, but one report stood out. A mission log, signed by Lieutenant Commander Ray Morgan, Unit 9. Vrozek read it silently. "We've completed Phase 3. Simulated base destruction successful. Enemy has taken the bait. Minor losses, all acceptable. Enemy leadership is inside the perimeter. Awaiting authorization to begin Phase 4. His throat tightened. "Phase 4? Sithra looked at him. "They wanted us here. This was the plan. Every moment we stay, we're doing exactly what they want." More messages began appearing in their system. They weren't transmitted, just showed up, as if written directly onto the screens. "How many more will you send? We warned you. We haven't even started yet. Every ship that tried to leave orbit went missing. Those that stayed near the planet's surface suffered system blackouts, drone failures, or crew vanishings. No battles, no enemy fire. Just absence." Then one more message arrived. This time not on a screen, but through a direct signal burst to Vrozek's own. "Calm, you celebrated early, Commander, and we watched." He crushed the device in his hand. This wasn't just about technology, it was psychological warfare. The humans weren't stronger, but they were smarter. And worse, they were patient. He turned to his officers. "We leave. Now. Burn everything. This world is cursed." But his words came too late. High above the planet, the last remaining Zarn flagship tried to jump to warp. For a few seconds, the engines powered up. The ship shook. Lights flickered. And then nothing. Gone. No explosion. No wreckage. Just silence. Unit 9 never showed their faces, but the message was clear. You thought the battle was over. The battle hasn't even begun. Commander Vrozek no longer slept. Every few minutes he checked the sky. The stars above Varelia looked peaceful. Too peaceful. The enemy hadn't fired a shot in days, yet his forces were shrinking. Patrols were disappearing. Supplies were vanishing from locked storerooms. Even soldiers were going missing in their bunks, with no sign of struggle. It was as if something moved between them, watching, waiting. "We are being hunted," he finally said aloud in the war tent. The officers looked at each other, uneasy. No one dared to disagree. Vrozek turned to Sithra. "How many units have we lost now?" She didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was low. 7 squads, 2 scouting crafts, 4 supply shuttles, 1 command post, and now, the 3rd recon." "The 3rd? Vrozek's eyes went wide. "They were our best. They went underground, never came back up." Silence fell. Sithra slowly pulled up a final transmission from the 3rd recon. The audio was broken, filled with static, but one word repeated clearly, over and over. "Eyes." That was it. Just one word, whispered again and again. "Eyes, eyes, eyes." Vrozek didn't know what it meant, but deep down it felt like a warning, or a prayer. Outside, the soldiers had stopped speaking freely. Many now refused to take their helmets off, even while eating. They kept their rifles ready, eyes darting toward every shadow. There were no gunfights, no alarms, just fear, and something worse. One night, a young soldier stumbled into camp, alone, covered in dust and blood, his armor half burned. His name was Jorik, part of the lost 3rd Recon. They rushed him to the med tent, but he barely spoke. He just kept repeating one thing. "They're still here." Vrozek entered the tent. "Who? Who is still here?" Jorik's eyes flicked to him, bloodshot, wild. "The humans. They never left the base. They're underneath it, in tunnels, waiting." Vrozek felt his chest tighten. "We scanned the whole area," he said. "There's nothing below." Jorik laughed softly, the sound broken. "They built under our feet, not with machines, with silence. They knew we'd never look down." He passed out after that, and he never woke up. Later that night, another message appeared, this time scrawled on the inside of the Zarn mess hall wall, red paint, human script. "Unit 9, thanks you for your supplies." Vrozek's hands shook with rage. "They're mocking us, stealing from us in the open." But deep inside, he felt something else too, not just anger, fear. He turned the base upside down, ordered drills, surveillance, traps. He sent squads into the ruins again, looking for tunnels or signs of movement. Nothing. Again and again, nothing. But the disappearances didn't stop. Sometimes only equipment was missing. Sometimes entire. Bunkers were found empty. Food vanished, ammo gone, no broken locks, no signs of struggle, like the humans walked straight through the walls. Then came the sound. It started on the 3rd night, a slow, steady tapping, like metal fingers on stone. Always heard near the outer fences, always just out of sight. The soldiers called it the knock. Every time they investigated, no one was there. Until one night, a camera finally caught something. It wasn't clear, just a blur, a figure crouched low, moving with impossible speed. It had a human shape, but too fast, too quiet, almost a shadow. It paused for 1 second, looking at the camera. Its face was hidden behind a helmet, but its eyes glowed red. Then the screen went black. Sithra froze when she saw the footage. "That's not a normal human. That's a Spectre suit, Black Ops armor. Earth stopped making them 100 years ago." "They didn't stop," Vrozek said darkly. "They perfected it." The next morning, they found a package near the main gate. No one saw who placed it there. Inside, 6 Zarn ID tags, neatly arranged. The names matched the 3rd Recon team. Beneath them, one final note. "This is not personal. This is warning." That night, Vrozek met with the remaining commanders. "We are not at war with Earth's army," he told them. "We're facing a unit trained to erase threats before they begin. Unit 9 doesn't fight wars. They end them before they start." Someone whispered, "Then what are we still doing here?" That question hung in the air like smoke. And somewhere, deep beneath the ground, in tunnels no scanner could find, shadows moved silently, watching, listening, waiting for the next mistake, because the humans had never left, and Unit 9 had not finished their mission yet. Vrozek stood in the middle of the ruins, staring at the cracked stone beneath his boots. Around him, his soldiers moved in tight groups, weapons raised, eyes darting toward every sound. The ruins were silent, but it wasn't peaceful. It was the silence of something hidden, waiting. He had ordered a full sweep, every corner, every tunnel, every shadow. No more fear, no more whispers. They would flush out these humans, end the game, and take back control. But even as the Zarn troops moved forward, no one could shake the feeling that they were being watched. Again, they found nothing at first. Empty corridors, dust, burned-out rooms. But then a squad stumbled upon a new door. Metal, heavy, clearly human-made, and sealed from the inside. No scans showed what was behind it. Vrozek gave the order. "Open it." The engineers worked, quickly. nervous but focused. The door cracked open with a hiss of pressure, and a cold breeze rolled out from the darkness beyond. "Lights," Vrozek said. They stepped inside. What they saw froze them in place. A hidden command room. Still, active. Screens lit. Human maps and signals glowing on the walls. There were notes, plans, even meal trays. The place wasn't abandoned. It had been used just hours ago. Sithra walked toward a small display screen. Her eyes scanned the text, and her voice broke. This is a psychological operation. Look, timelines, targets, even fear response patterns. They've been watching us, studying how we react to loss, to silence. They knew exactly what to take, when, and how. Vrozek stared at the screen. They weren't just victims of a stealth team. They had been part of a test for Unit 9. Suddenly, one of the Zarn soldiers near the exit shouted, "Movement!" Lights spun, weapons lifted, but the hallway was empty again. No sound, no sign of footsteps. Then a quiet click echoed through the room. A timer. Everyone turned toward the center table. A small black device blinked with a red light. Sithra whispered, "It's a bomb." They ran, fast, too fast. Alarms roared across the base as the hidden room exploded in fire and pressure. The blast didn't kill anyone, but it sent a clear message. You were never meant to find this. They regrouped at the surface, dazed, covered in ash. And before Vrozek could speak, the message arrived. A voice, through the same secure channel as before, Unit 9. "You've seen enough, Commander," it said, calm, even. "We wanted you to understand, not just what we are, but what we're capable of." "Show yourselves!" Vrozek shouted back. "Face us!" But there was only silence. Then the voice spoke again. "You brought an army to a graveyard, but we're not the ones buried here. You are." The signal ended, and that was when the map table in the center of Vrozek's war room flickered. It now showed something new. Every Zarn base, every camp, every drop zone, marked in red, and around each location, tiny blinking signals, bomb markers. Sithra gasped. "They planted explosives everywhere?" Vrozek didn't blink. "No, worse." He pointed at the map. "They marked where we think our strongholds are." Sithra looked confused. "What do you mean?" He leaned forward, his voice low. "They're showing us they know more than we do, that they've already been there, already seen us, already planned our end." All at once, reports came in. Explosions, silent blackouts, fleeing troops, officers vanishing mid-command. The war was over, but only for the Zarn. Unit 9 hadn't brought a war to Virelia. They had ended one, quietly, completely, and without ever needing a full army. This wasn't defense. This was punishment. And as the final message arrived, Vrozek understood that too. It came as a simple line of text on every Zarn console. "We told you this wasn't the army. You never saw what's really coming." And just like that, all Zarn systems went black. No power, no comms, no support, only darkness and silence. Again. Vrozek sat alone in the command tent, the screen in front of him still dark. His claws trembled slightly. Around him, the camp was quiet, too quiet. No orders, no movement, just the faint wind and the distant creaking of broken equipment. The once great Zarn force had become ghosts of themselves, afraid to speak, afraid to move, waiting for a shadow to grab them in. The night. He finally spoke, his voice low and cold. "We were never fighting soldiers. We were part of a demonstration." Sithra stood nearby, her face pale. "Then who did we face, Commander? That wasn't a normal unit." Vrozek's eyes narrowed. "That was Unit 9. but not the full one. What we saw, what hunted us, that was only their forward team. Scouts, ghosts. Sithra shook her head. Scouts don't take down full battalions. They do, he growled, if they're human. The truth was sinking in across the remaining Zarn forces. Everyone now whispered about the same thing, about what they didn't know, about what they might have triggered by stepping onto this world, because the humans never responded with anger, never declared war, never demanded surrender. They only sent Unit 9, and they never even sent it all. On the third night after the blackout, a new ship entered Virelia's orbit, small, silent. Its engine barely hummed. It didn't show up on the standard scans, only appeared when it wanted to be seen. Then it landed, not near the Zarn base, not near the ruins, but deep in the wastelands. A lone figure stepped out. One. Just one. Vrozek saw the footage later. The figure wore black armor, the kind that absorbed light, the kind that made the shadows darker around it. No markings, no flag, only a small white number across the chest. 09. Unit 9. In person. Sithra watched the footage again and again. He came alone. Vrozek stared. No, he came as a message. They didn't dare approach the landing site, but they watched. The figure moved calmly. He walked straight into the ruins. No weapon raised, no backup behind him, and every camera that caught his image went dead within minutes. Then the base lights flickered. One by one, screens across the camp turned on. The figure was there, looking directly into the feed. He spoke. You celebrated too early. His voice was calm, human, sharp like a blade. You defeated what you thought was Earth's presence. You danced in our ashes. He stepped forward, and even through the screen, it felt like he was in the room with them. But ashes are not the end. They're the warning. Vrozek whispered, What do you want? The figure didn't answer that. Instead, he turned and showed them something he held in his hand, a patch, torn, burned. It was the Zarn victory emblem, the one they had raised over the human base after they took it. He dropped it to the ground and stepped on it. Then he said the final words. You were never supposed to see us. Now you will never forget us. The feed cut. The next hour was chaos. The Zarn scrambled defenses, prepared to evacuate, but nothing came. The human didn't attack. No fire fell from the sky. No ships arrived. The silence was worse. Because now, every soldier knew, Unit 9 chose not to strike. They were letting the fear do the damage. Letting the memory break what bullets could not. One soldier finally asked aloud what they were all thinking. If that was just one, how many more are there? No one answered. Because deep inside, they all feared the same thing. That Earth had built an army that didn't fight wars. It ended them, quietly, and the Zarn had given them the perfect reason to show the galaxy how. The Zarn Empire once filled the stars with pride, with power, with fear, but now whispers filled the darkness. Whispers of a unit, human, silent, deadly, that tore apart armies without warning. No one spoke its name loudly. It traveled like a ghost through military channels and frightened minds. Unit 9. Back on Virelia, the Zarn troops were no longer soldiers. They were survivors. They barely spoke. The command posts were quiet. No plans, no missions. Just a low hum of fear hanging. In the air. Vrozek stood among them like a statue, silent, broken. His empire had lost more than ships or men. It had lost its mind. The message from Unit 9 kept playing on a loop in the command tent. No one dared shut it off, as if silencing it would summon something worse. You never saw what's really coming, and now the galaxy was listening. Word spread fast. Too fast. Small empires, minor species, pirate groups, mercenaries, they all heard what had happened on Virelia. No one understood the full story, but they didn't need to. They understood enough. The humans hadn't just survived. They had watched, waited, prepared, and... When the time was right, they sent only a shadow of their strength, and it was enough. At a neutral station in deep space, a war council met in secret. 11 different species gathered in a dark room to discuss one thing: humanity. "What are they?" one asked. "We knew they were strange. We knew they were stubborn. But this?" another answered with a shaking voice. "If Unit 9 is just a scout force, then Earth. Earth must be something worse than we ever imagined." They debated, argued, feared. No one suggested war, not anymore. Now they spoke of treaties, of peace, of silence, and above all, of distance. "Let Earth be," the Zenth ambassador said. "Whatever they are, let them stay quiet. Let them stay away." But the question still lingered in every room, in every corner of the galaxy. What happens if Earth doesn't stay away? Meanwhile, on Virelia, the final transports arrived. The Zarn pulled their remaining troops from the surface. No words, no pride. Just silence and dust. As Vrozek prepared to leave, he looked once more at the broken landscape, the place where everything had changed. Sithra stood beside him, her voice soft. "Did we start a war we can't finish?" Vrozek didn't respond at first. He watched the horizon. Then he answered with a voice that had lost all power. "No, we didn't start a war." He turned to her. "We woke a sleeping god." The ship doors closed behind them. The final Zarn. Transport lifted into the sky, leaving Virelia in silence. But deep under the surface, in tunnels the Zarn never reached, lights blinked on, a hand reached out, human, armored, and pressed against a screen. A quiet voice spoke into the darkness. "Virelia is secure, phase complete, awaiting next target." Another voice responded. Through a hidden comm, "Unit 9, stand by. Confirmation, standing by." The screen went black, and across the stars on a world far from the reach of most maps, Earth watched everything. Calm, cold, silent, not because it was afraid, but because it was thinking, and building, and waiting, because if the galaxy ever made the mistake of testing humanity again, this time they wouldn't send a unit, they would send the whole storm, and no empire would ever celebrate again.